Hi, welcome to the Black Hat Europe NOC report. We'll start off real quick with introductions, and then we'll roll straight into it. My name is Neil Wyler, but everybody knows me as Grifter. By day, I am the global lead of active threat assessments for IBM X-Force, so I run IBM X-Force's threat hunting program around the world. By night, I do this. I help run all the technical operations for the Black Hat security briefings with this guy here. I'm also one of the main organizers of DEF CON, doing all the contest events, demo labs, and what else? Speak at conferences, written some books, stuff like that. Basically, things that make my mom happy, but in reality, what it means is that I just live and breathe security. I love it. It's dope that they pay me for it. So.
I am Bart Stump. I do this as well in the evening as Batman, as we always sounds like. During the day, I am a senior SE for Net Witness. Done a whole bunch of other things, but it never sounds as cool as him, so we just kind of skip.
You're cool. I think you're cool.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, I love you. We do not do this alone, though. This is the team that is here with us this year. All right, so this is the NOC team. What are you laughing at?
Your pose.
There's nothing to worry about that. Right, so this is the crew that's there. The crew for the NOC team is not just folks who are working or contracted directly with Black Hat. It's actually a whole host of individuals from our partners. So years ago, we decided that we used to roll our own on everything. We did everything with open source and scripts and a prayer. But years back, we decided that we couldn't scale like that. And so we approached some vendors and said, hey, would you be interested in letting us use your equipment? And we'll mention that you let us use your equipment when we get on stage, or we'll put it in the program, or all that kind of things. And thankfully, everyone said yes, everybody we approached. So we just went shopping in the expo hall, essentially, and picked all the things that we wanted. So we do have a few different folks here. Gigamon is our network backbone. Essentially, they're mirroring all the traffic that we have so that we can put them into different tools and appliances that we're using to run the NOC and to get in there and do investigations. We have NetWitness, which is full packet and SIM and forensics, as well as our identity and access management provider. We have IronNet for network threat visibility, so NDR technology. Cisco is a lot. Switches, access points, DNS, mobile device management. Cisco, special shout out to Cisco as well, because before the Asia show, we had a previous wireless provider who said, like a month before, they were just like, hey, we're not going to be able to support Black Hat this year. It turns out we just don't have the budget, the manpower, or whatever it is to send out. And we were like, cool, we have 4 weeks to find a replacement for the entire network operations for Black Hat Asia. Thankfully, we had a relationship already with Cisco, and we said, help, and they were like, you got it. So we have Meraki gear serving up packets here today. Palo Alto is our core, so firewall and routing. And then the internet just comes from the venue. I don't know what we pay for that, but I'm sure it's like $1 a packet.
You got a gig this year, too.
Yeah, it's a gig's worth of bandwidth.
So the gear, we'll talk about numbers first, and then we'll show you an architecture, kind of what it looks like logically and what we've done here. So as you can see, Cisco's brought us a whole lot of stuff, switches, access points, and then the MX concentrators were used for the access points and some other firewalling that we needed elsewhere in the venue from a remote perspective. Palo Alto, has 3 PA5260s. 2 of them are in HA, active passive, and then 1 is actually out of band collecting data that we get from Gigamon as well. RSA has provided us network visibility. We have a head unit decoder concentrator built into a couple of Dell ESA units. They're just Dell boxes basically that broke up. Gigamon provides that HC2 that again taps that data and provides that into all of our tools. And then IronNet also providing visibility with the IS-1500.
And I realized I did not update the amount of terabytes. We don't have 250 terabytes worth of storage for this show. We did for the US show, and that's why that's there.
We don't use slides. So the architecture, here's what it looks like this year. From a logical perspective, the internet comes in and hits a breakout switch. comes into the WAN side of the two 5260s. That then we tap, as you can see on the south side of the firewalls, to all of our tools. That data is fed into mainly NetWitness, Palo, and IronNet. We do occasionally have some other open source tools that we use to visualize some data. You'll see some of that we didn't necessarily have here, but in the dashboard section. And then that core switch stack. Core is a confusing term to some people. Apparently it's not routing. It's basically just where we break that out into the different VLANs that we need across the venue. At that point, we have a management network, switch that was dedicated for registration because we've hosed ourselves before, and another one that we use for all that wireless environment. Unique to our international shows as opposed to what we do in Las Vegas, we do ride the infrastructure of the venue, so we are going over Excel's infrastructure, which causes some other, I wouldn't say headaches, but unique ways that we have to get around that because they're VLANing. We don't get into Q and Q, and there are some things that causes some design issues with. So from a logical perspective, we definitely want to keep it as simple as possible. Steve Fink, our head architect, helps keep a lot of that in line, works with all the partners to make sure that we keep it as simple and stable as possible.
Steve MF Fink.
Hey.
What does the MF stand for?
Mary Frank.
Yes.
And then this is actually more of a logical flow in some of the processes that we have in place. So we've talked about this a lot, and if you've seen any of our talks before, we have a slide that we still have and talk about a few things, kind of the evolution of the NOC. Again, to Grifter's point, we used to do open source, SoCris boxes, OpenBSD, PF, scripts, and no sleep. And that was basically the only way that this network was up. One of the biggest reasons, and in some cases it wasn't up, right? The stability was a completely different ballgame. One of the big reasons that we went and talked to our partners and got those partners in place, and I'll talk about this a little bit here, I guess, is it's a NOC. It's not a SOC, if you've ever heard us call it that. Our number one priority is stability of the network. So if you're in a training room and you have labs that are in AWS or GCP, something else that the trainer has done, the last thing that we want to do is limit those people in those training rooms to be able to access those labs, to be able to do what they need and be taught. So stability is kind of the number one priority for us at this point. Security, I certainly wouldn't say is secondary, but it's not our primary function. So
Co-function, if you will.
It is, absolutely. So as you can see here, there's a whole bunch of things. I won't go through this whole flow. We have integrations from all of the partners. We have NetWitness captures payloads. We dump that into Threat Grid. We detonate that in the sandbox, see if there's a problem. We have a Slack bot that's integrated with Palo Alto's Cortex SOAR that basically anybody in the NOC can access that, put in a MAC address and IP address and get enriched data, create incidents and some other things that we can all look at and work through that. Syslog is sent to that as well as NetWitness. We dig and correlate and go through all of that with the threat hunters. Gigamon taps that data and obviously provides that to all of them. And then SecureX on top of that. Everybody has a SOAR at this point, so we're kind of okay with everybody doing what they can and kind of obviously giving us more data, helping us out, and keeping us more enlightened, if you will. So what am I missing here? Malware analysis, again, from Threat Grid, SecureX, we're good. Meraki provides all kinds of MDM as well. If you've noticed that we have the iPads outside of registration, outside of the briefings rooms, we do secure all of that as well with Cisco's MDM.
Tell you what, that looks an awful lot like a SOC. I'm just saying.
It's adorable.
So this is what it looks like when we're building stuff. Jimmy, one of the guys from Palo Alto, just set up a time lapse of an undisclosed location where all the gear has been deployed, and you can just see it progressively turn into more of a shit show. And so
there's the cardboard.
Yeah,
boxes.
look, all of a sudden cardboard boxes, which are that's a rack.
Yeah,
that's a rack. Right.
Close enough.
So, and that's what it looks like on tables and cardboard boxes.
Coordinated.
Your infrastructure, ladies and gentlemen. So.
It gets set up in 2 days, though, so that is something to that we definitely brag about. It's hopefully stable, secure network that enterprise grade with the visibility that we have in a matter of a couple of days. It's probably one of the smoothest setup shows that we've had in a long time. It's definitely something that.
Yeah. Yes, thank you to our partners.
I was gonna say that's for the partners.
Yeah.
We watched that and that looked like a really cool video, and they look all tired. But
you guys you look like you worked hard. You worked so hard. All right, so that means that we have a lot of different technologies that are out there and that we're using. And of course, those technologies all come with some different dashboard. I like that once the light, that you guys were plunged into darkness. I apologize, you're gonna get occasionally blinded depending on what screenshots are up there. But everything's got a different dashboard. We use a variety of things, both what comes from the enterprise or vendor technologies, as well as open source things that just feed us information to tell us what is the temperature on the network at any given time. Are we seeing a particular load somewhere? What is areas that we need to focus on, that kind of thing. And of course, just interesting data. Where are things flying to? What are the most utilized technologies, that kind of thing. And we'll get into that in a moment. See, blind
this is
again.
a perspective, I'm gonna poke you for a second. The perspective that I hadn't really seen in years were sort of management. It's even weird for me to say here. But obviously being the guy that's usually behind the keyboard and doing the technical stuff, it's interesting the way that you see dashboards. If you're a SOC analyst, it's one thing and you need to be able to see information and it's there, and the fancy executive reports are all, we always make fun of that. But there is a level that I've kind of grown to like the dashboards and try to understand that a little bit more, because we're in and out of the NOC so quickly, and I want to be able to see exactly what's happening in 2 seconds, or know that there's a problem, or know that I can go take a nap in the corner and it not be a problem. So the dashboards have become a very unique piece and given me a different perspective even with the show and kind of the way that we're handling things and where we're at compared to a day job. So it's certainly grown and been unique from years past.
More pretty dashboards, right? Pretty. But let's get into some actual stats. All right, so year over year, we just track like how many DNS queries. Lets us know how much is the network being used. What are you out there looking for? You can see there is a gradual increase year over year from 2017 to 2019. Obviously, 2020 is not there. We have forgotten it. You should forget it. Let's move on. 2021, we were back. We were back here last year. And it was a much smaller show, right? Not as many folks came out physically, but this year, you're back. So again, that increase, it looks like it just essentially kept right on going, and the trend continues, right? So
you left those in even after you talked
about
it?
I did. I left animations in. I meant to take them out. I apologize. Whatever. Anyway, so these are the most popular of particular applications, right? So apps, FTP on Debian, there's interesting stuff going on out there. Chat was WhatsApp, Binance for crypto mining, dating, Tinder, and porn, X videos. So yes, porn, you're still disgusting. Year after year, I don't understand. You paid how much, or your companies did, and you're just like, oh, sweet, let me grab some stuff. Like, at that point, it's an addiction. It is. Get help, Black Hat.
More stats. So in this, some of these are from NetWitness, the amount of packets and logs that we pulled. You can see the number of clients. I can't though. What is the number we had on there? We had, I want to say it was about 1,600 clients that we peaked at. Unique apps was about 3,500. This is all just unique kind of stats, nerd data that we like to pull every year. Kind of correlate that and what it looks like. Again, we had about a gig pipe here. You guys didn't really use it. We did have some QoSing on that and some caps, but I didn't really blow out the entire 1 gig. So 228 million packets captured. We'll talk about this real quick. We wipe all of that data at the end of this show. We don't keep any of that. It's not used for any marketing info, but we do capture every packet that flies across the network. While we were on
that was
site.
on the log decoder. On the other decoder, we had over 5 billion, which is
I messed up.
most that. You're all right.
No, your decoder, that's your log decoder. Packets, yes, you're right. 5.3 billion packets.
Don't ever question me
228
again.
million
Never,
logs.
not in public, not in private.
Packets. It said packets.
Never question me. Okay.
I'll yell at Glover later.
Love you. Next slide.
So more unique stats here. The interesting one here, malicious DNS requests was 21,000, but 39% of that was definitely malicious, which that's interesting. I didn't see a grayware as well. That was, I think we did the math, it was over 8,600 that was actually malicious compared to the grayware. Your devices, again, unique devices. If you see the Meraki's in there, but Intel PC was down towards the middle, only 50. So you guys are either hiding stuff or there's not many Windows PCs. I don't fully believe that. Apple, obviously the top, usually is. We're good there.
I love that. Again, the X-video stuff now, just 40% of the traffic is malicious. Disgusting, disgusting, disgusting. All right, continue. So top streaming apps, like obviously, like TikTok. Y'all are here and you're watching TikTok. So cool. Again, great use of your company's money. It's probably how you can tell how good somebody's talk is they're just like the audience is swiping up.
You see any swipes out there? We're good right
Yeah,
now.
so
We're okay. We're still good.
So yeah, again, so interesting stuff here as well is like malicious URLs, things that we're going to 17,000 different URLs that folks were hitting. On the bottom there, looking at things like our TLS, right? 1.2 versus 1.3, about 50-50. So that's good. We're making moves.
Your IOCs?
IOCs, about half possible Cobalt Strike.
What class was throwing that around?
Somebody was doing something. Or just one guy in the hall. Yeah, who can say?
I'm not here to judge.
Yeah, and then just the different types of behaviors of compromise that we see, stuff that isn't necessarily an indicator, but it's something that's like, this could potentially be bad. And that's how we kind of jump off on hunts and things. So we'll see something and we'll go, that might be something that we want to take a look at. Sometimes it's something really trivial, like literally going direct to IP or seeing something like base 64 encoded data in a request, and we're like, well, what is that? And then we go and take a look at it. So even though some of the things seem trivial, as all of you know, it doesn't require a ridiculous zero-day exploit to get into anything. Sometimes it's just the lowest hanging fruit.
What else? Malicious URLs. So there's some interesting things here. Again, which one was malware compared to phishing? C2. We often see plenty of C2, again, whether it's from a course or we do see many people come onto the network infected. We try to let people know as often as possible, whether it's walking into a classroom and letting them know. We have in the past done some, this is actually a unique story as well. We've done captive portals to let you guys know if we see traffic. So if we saw unencrypted credentials, or we saw C2, or we saw a machine doing crypto mining, what we would normally do is let you know via captive portal, and that is actually almost useless now because everything is pretty well TLS, and you will never get presented that captive portal. So we're actually looking into some other ways to inform folks at the show without having to go tap people on the shoulder, which we did a couple of times this year, and it's been a little while, so it was kind of fun to be the bad guys walking in the back of the room again.
Walking into somebody's training class and saying, we need to speak to IP address this, and having them go.
Everybody's panicked, seeing what their IP is, and then you can usually tell.
That one guy wouldn't come to the back of the room. He just wanted to do it in front of everybody.
So we told him.
We were like, okay. So we'll talk a little bit about like the evolution. I'll make this quick because if you've been to this talk before in years past, we always do this slide just to let you know how the network has evolved. So as Bart said earlier, our main objective is to have a stable network, something that you can use, right?
That one's mine.
And then I know I'm bringing it to you. I'm trying to be kind.
I thought
now you called it out. So to have a stable network, something that you can use, that you can get to your labs, that you can do whatever it is that you need to do. And then after that, it is security. Like security, it does come second on this slide, but not in our hearts. At a certain point very early on in Black Hat's, when I took over the network, at the time, the network was flat. Like Black Hat's early network was just bedlam. And so classes would attack other classes, right? The offensive class would attack the defense class, or the like human factor class or whatever. They would just go after them like crazy. Like, I learned something new, mwah, and throw it at somebody else. So at that point, it was just breaking everybody up to keep you from touching each other, and so that it wouldn't become an issue. Inside training classes, that everybody can still see each other, and that's due to the nature of many of the labs that are in there. But classroom to classroom, and then out, when you're out around the network in the halls, you cannot see each other. So at a certain point, we said, all right, we also, we want to do some threat hunting. We want to go in there and see what's actually going on. People often describe the Black Hat network as one of, if not the most hostile network in the world. That is true if you consider that looking at all the traffic that we have is incredibly malicious, right? The things that take place on this network are the types of things that would cause a declared incident in any organization every 5 minutes, right? But that's because somebody's doing a training class, or they're showing their friends something in the hallway, or they're doing a demo on stage. And so we can't go in there and just block everything. So what we do is we try to identify what's actually bad, right? What's the bad within the bad? We often describe this as searching for a needle in a needle stack. That is why we have so many hunters in the NOC. Most of the folks that you see in there are doing investigations throughout all of Black Hat, and they come from Cisco and Palo Alto and NetWitness and IronNet. Like, they're all in there looking to see what's actually bad.
Sharing data, working together, what you see in the different technologies, and it's grown a lot in that sense too. So it provides perspectives from each of those partners and those people and those hunters even it's unique.
Yeah, so we do that. We just coordinate through Slack with each other, essentially. We just go, okay, this looks like something. Can anybody give me some more context on this? And each of the folks just jump in there and say, oh, I found this in our system. Oh, I looked at this thing. Let me add some more. Screenshots get added. And the investigation continues, and they go, all right, yeah, it looks like that is something that we actually have to care about. Or, nope, that's totally a class that's taking place. And you'll often see some of the earlier in the week stuff end with, that class is this. It looks like it's relevant to that, particular course. The malware sandboxing. Again, so we started a relationship with Cisco, with ThreatGrid, and what we were doing was anything that we could potentially consider malware, whether it was some type of executable or a DLL or a PDF or whatever, we'd throw it into a sandbox, open it up, interact with it, see what it does, right? We want to see if that's actually something interesting. We often find interesting things, sometimes brand new malware, sometimes just variants of something that we've seen in the past. Either way, it's fun. We get to see what goes in there. Sometimes that also clues us into different things. We see PDFs get opened up, and we're like, why is there a Wells Fargo logo on that, right? It's like, oh, that can't be good.
Guys, more.
Yeah. And then we go down again. We go talk to people, and they say, I know what I'm doing. I've been in security 20 years. And you're like, your mortgage has this much left on it. And they go, oh, my gosh, right? So nobody believes us when we come for them, right? They just go, I know, it's fine. I know what I'm doing. And we're like, we know what you're doing too. We can see it. So the identity and access management part of this was because we had a partner at the time where there was an incident where with the best intentions, they pushed some changes to their gear at midnight one time at a US show, and it caused like a 90-minute outage the next morning. Actually, it was a longer outage, but the impact to the classes was 90 minutes. And we were like, no one can ever push a config change again without it going through Bart, Fink, or myself. So
endpoint isn't really endpoint anymore as well. We're not putting
different.
any endpoint protection on you guys. For the majority, obviously, this was registration machines. Those have changed. We don't really have laptops.
Now it's mobile device management.
MDM. So in a sense, same thing. It's an endpoint. We just mobile endpoint.
And you already covered automation, so we're good.
And that's constantly evolving. So there's plenty of automation and I think a million other things that we could do with that.
Unlike that magic carp who never actually evolves.
You're burning up all the time and we haven't gotten into stories.
No, we didn't. We're good. We got plenty of time.
Okay, stories. So this one is rather interesting in some of the lessons. So I actually have started giving another talk about building SOCs basically on some of the things that we've learned here, some stories. And this is actually a really interesting one. So directionality matters is kind of how I'll start. So what we started seeing was a bunch of communication from a specific client on the network to something in Colombia. Whatever, nothing that abnormal, but as soon as they pivoted on that Colombia IP address, collectively a few of our hearts dropped because we had infrastructure that was speaking to this same IP address. Over the course of troubleshooting and not panicking, but those duck legs under the water were definitely kicking. What we found out was that there was a infrastructure hacking course that was spoofing a whole bunch of different IPs, teaching some things, reaching out, and what ended up happening through, again, some not very panicked, but certainly concerned troubleshooting that they were spoofing IPs from Colombia, reaching out, and it was never even getting outside of our network. From a public perspective, obviously, what we found is that the communication from our core that we thought was communicating to Colombia was dropping those packets and telling the student in that classroom that they were not going to go. However, that was a spoofed IP address. So obviously directionality was kind of the piece here. We were speaking back to a classroom, but in that initial pivot, seeing that our infrastructure was speaking to a IP address in Colombia, we were super concerned, dug in a little bit, found that out, and we're clean.
This one is just a favorite of ours. We keep finding. And this one is somebody who's using BigFix, but they have not configured it to use any type of encryption, so everything is in the clear. And what you're looking at on the screen is all of the applications and what versions they're on, all of the services running on that machine, everything about it that would essentially jump you straight into being able to go in and move to exploitation versus having to do a bunch of reconnaissance on it. All
more reconnaissance
beacon
get on your own
onto the network. It's trying to communicate back to the company server, but it just does that by vomiting the information onto the network, regardless of whether anybody asked for it. So this could be happening in a coffee shop, in an airport lounge, wherever it's happening. And we see this show after show after show. It is repeatedly people misconfiguring BigFix, where it's just like, please just check the box that says to use TLS. So that one's always fun.
Pre-owned, but it's in good condition. So again, the majority of what we see as far as threats and actual malware is generally infected before it comes onto this network. So we'll see the command and control. We'll see the data off of that, the IOCs triggering. What we saw here was one of the threat hunters found an interesting IP address we were communicating with. A machine on the network, looked it up, and there was actually a blog written a week ago on this here malware. Somebody was infected. Those IOCs matched. The IP matched. And we got to walk into the back of the classroom and tap him on the shoulder, dig through IP addresses, find out who it was, and at least let him know. So again, not necessarily trying to scare anybody, but if we can let everybody know when they're on the network and we see those things and make you more secure when we leave. Obviously, it's a security conference and we're all security professionals, so anything that we can do to help out each other, it's kind of where that was. But they came out of the network infected. We saw that. We let them know, and it seemed to be a pretty fresh write-up of this malware. Archetype 2? I can't pronounce it. It was an interesting spell.
I think it was a few weeks old, but regardless, that individual, like we said, people often describe this as one of the most hostile networks in the world, and be careful when you go on the Black Hat network, all that. But our goal is to actually leave more people more secure when they leave by us letting them know that they're beaconing out to command and control infrastructure or whatever it is, or doing crypto mining, or they have clear text credentials, those types of things. We tell a not insignificant number of folks about those things while they're here. So if their SOC isn't catching it, we do, and they leave more secure. And that makes us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. In this particular case, I mentioned simple things, right? Direct IP, base 64 encoding. That's exactly what we saw here, was a bunch of base 64 encoded traffic that was leaving the environment. We said, what is that? And what it turned out to be was a Chrome extension for like a video downloader, like Facebook video downloader Chrome extension, and that extension was, it didn't even work. Somebody in the NOC was like, I'm gonna go get it and see what it does, right? And like set it up, and they were like, it doesn't even work, it just gives you an error message, lols. But they left it installed, and what it did was just harvest essentially every
website.
Every website they went to, every Google search, everything, all whatever, just went out to a known bad command and control infrastructure. Once we dug into the threat intelligence, we went to this particular classroom to find whatever student it was that had this on it. Turns out it was the instructor.
Registration situation. So we just explain a little bit, I guess, some back information here. We actually migrate the registration database on site at every show. When you go connect and try to register while a show is going on, you'll actually be hitting a web server that sits in the NOC. That registration server is often tried to be hit. There were many attempts from the outside. We often see scans. That's not abnormal. Some SQL injections. This is the one place that we will tell you that there are things that are blocked. There are absolutely policies in place around that web server. We are decrypting that data. We do see what those database rights are, those reads. We make sure that we can see all of that. Our information is in that database server. Your information is in that database server. And none of us want to end up on Twitter. So there were absolutely some attacks from the outside. Everything was blocked. But generally, you try to see SQL injections and just other general scans.
We, like you said, and I want to qualify that, the only traffic that gets decrypted on this network is the traffic from the registration server to us, right? So we want to make sure that we can see what's going on there. Obviously, we don't even.
We've talked about it before, but our goal would be to see nothing on this network.
Yeah.
You should be encrypted.
Fire us immediately. Yeah. We would sit with a drink somewhere. But also, we do see attacks at international shows. The U.S. show is by far the one where we see the most aggressive, and even, I know attribution is hard, but even nation state attributed attacks toward. Those are our crown jewels. Your information is our crown jewels. We assume that if all of your data ends up on the internet, and that is probably valuable information to somebody who are the top security researchers, and let's get all of that stuff and gather it up. If that happens, we're out of a job. So
you're just trying to get us fired now.
I'm trying to get us fired. I'm going to have a drink in my hand at some point. Okay, so in this particular case, again, simple things where we're trying to tell people, hey, we see this traffic, there's something going on, you're passing something in the clear. This is one of those cases. We just saw information that was coming across the network in the clear, looked like it was clear text credentials, started digging into things. What we started seeing was clear text emails, logins to things. This poor individual, they sent their resume over in the clear, they had all kinds of stuff, and they even logged into their blog to update their blog, which is, of course, security related, right? So they are posting stories about how to stay secure while throwing all their stuff out there for free, right? So
we found the credentials to said blog.
We did. We should post an update.
Oh my.
So anyway, so we saw several individuals shopping for vehicles, right? Different types of this particular vehicle, different colors, different years, different trunk space, right? So they were shopping for these vehicles as early as 10 in the morning, spending, again, not insignificant amount of time just trying to find the right one. This slide is not about cars. Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah.